G'day everyone, welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. The game has just finished in Lille in France. France against Italy, and France coming out winners by 33 points to 8 at the end of that one. So what do we all think of it? Well, it was had its moments, didn't it? But France kicked off well. A couple of things to recap to start off with. Thomas Ramos playing his 50th cap for France today. It seems like he's been around much longer than that, but the guy has just racked up 50 caps and he's scoring so many points for this French team. Incredible player, Thomas Ramos. So congratulations to him for getting to 50 caps today. But France started off exactly how they would want to in this game. We saw some brilliance from Dupont in the first couple of minutes that led to a try from Biel, and France were straight away on the board, 5 points to 0. The Ramos was not going to miss the conversion, 7-0 after a few minutes. And boy, just absolute brilliance. Italy were undone by this brilliance of France. And this is what this French team can do. And this is why I love watching them, because they've got so much talent, spontaneous at times. It can just win them games like it did today. They were absolutely outstanding again in those first few minutes, and Italy just weren't able to get into the game. And Italy weren't playing bad rugby in the beginning there. They were in it. They were exchanging. The defensive work was good again. But when you've got these players like Dupont, like Biel, and Ramos, and Gaëtan today was just brilliant as well. This is the difference with this French team. And they're young as well. They've got these 20-year-old guys that are coming through, and they're going to be around for 2 Rugby World Cup cycles. So I think what Fabien Galtier is doing with this French team is brilliant. So they jumped out to 7-0 today. France were getting the possession after, I got it down here, after 11 minutes. France had 58% of the possession to 42 of Italy. And Italy weren't just able to get themselves into the game. Capuzzo was trying his hardest. He had a couple of good runs early from the backfield, but he wasn't linking up with the likes of Liner and Montejuani and getting them into the game. So Italy just had some trouble getting over the advantage line. Again, Marin and Menoncello were doing their part in the midfield, but it seems as though when it broke down, the French were very good at being able to recover the ball. And I thought in that first 15 minutes or so, France were just really, really good at getting the ball back and being able to dominate the play and use their individual brilliance. When Dupont was looking for opportunities, there's not many players in the world that can stop this guy. He's just absolutely phenomenal. And the power to weight ratio, the strength that he's got, just incredible. I could fill up a whole video talking about Antoine Dupont. I just think he's a genius rugby player, and he's just absolutely fantastic to watch. And yeah, I put him up there with as good as anybody in world rugby at the moment. And then around the 11th minute, we saw a big error from Thomas Ramos. He kicked the ball out on the full into touch, and then 2 minutes later, he did a great 50-22. So this is what Ramos is like. 1 minute he can do something that's not so good. The next minute, a fantastic 50-22 that put France back down onto attack and gave them an opportunity to build some momentum to get their next try, and that was going to come from Miafu, who went over, and France were rampant at this stage, and that's the notes that I made here. I just put down France were rampant. Miafu, you're not going to stop that guy when he gets close to the line. And after 14 minutes, despite Ramos missing the conversion of that try, France were out to 12 points to 0. And one probably thought that this game was going to be a game that got quickly away from Italy. But once again, as we've seen so many times from Italy, they dig themselves back into the game. It's not always attractive rugby, but it's resilient rugby, and it's rugby full of courage. And when it was 12-0, it could have easily gone France's way to running away with the game at that stage after 20 minutes. That didn't happen, and credit to Italy for staying in there, even though they weren't playing their best game today, and that was obvious from the get-go. They just weren't able to get on level terms with France from an attacking point of view. And when you sit down at the beginning of these games and you think, okay, if Italy are going to win today, they're going to have to put on probably more than 25 points to beat this French team. Are they capable of doing it? Well, not with their current setup as far as their attacking play goes. It just doesn't look like it can penetrate these kinds of defensive lines like the French have got today. They were just simply too good. So after the first 20 minutes, it was 12-0, as I said, in favour of France. Italy got a few breaks. You'll probably remember the good one that was from Marin. He got right through the French backs, and he was ably supported at that stage from Louis Liner, and it was Biel Biarri, who gets often only talked about for his offensive play, but he was one of the men back, and he put a great tackle on Louis Liner to bring him down and to save France on that occasion. That was definitely a try-saving tackle from Biel Biarri, and Anton Dupont was there to clean up as well. So the two of them were back doing their defensive duty, stopped that try opportunity from Italy around the 21st minute. And I thought that was a really big play in the game. If Italy had got a try at that stage, they would have been back to 12-5 or 12-7 really in the game. But France's defense stood up, and it was really, really good. Again, a few minutes later, Dupont, fantastic tackle on Fusco. When Fusco was in the clear as well, again, Dupont just showing that he can do everything on and off the ball with this French team. And he's just, as I'll use the word again, he's just a genius around the field of play. His understanding of the game, his game management, whether it be in attack, whether it be in defense, we saw it all today from Dupont. It was just absolutely extraordinary. And then we got to the 28th minute, and it was another try, this time from France. Thomas Ramos would go in for the try, but there was some really good work from Gaetan and then Biel Biarri, whereas the kick came through, and it was a fantastic try to Thomas Ramos. That put them out to 17 points to 0. And then Ramos was able to get up, get his heart rate under control, get the conversion over, 19 points to 0. So a very quick start for France once again. And one has to think that if you're going to have any chance of beating this French team, you have to keep them quiet in the first 20 minutes of the game. That wasn't happening with Italy. Italy had their moments, but they weren't able to stop France from scoring tries, and that was the thing that really took them out. But then a couple of minutes later, Italy had their first opportunity, although it was probably from a French mistake. It was at a maul that was broken down on the French goal line, and Capuzzo went over, rolling over top of the ball and placing it down to score the try. It had come out of the back of the French ruck. Opportunist try, absolutely. Something created through the back line of Italy, no way. It was just one of those things. Capuzzo was the man on the spot at the time, and I think France would have been quite delighted at the end of the game today that was the only try that was scored against them, and it was just a broken piece of play like that. It wasn't through a structured backline move or an attacking raid from the Italians. So I think the French defensive coaches will be happy with what they saw today. But Italy did get on the board in the 31st minute, 19 points to 5. Garbisi missed the conversion, so there were no more points for Italy at that particular stage, but they only had to wait a couple of more minutes, and they were able to get a penalty opportunity. A goal kick from Garbisi, almost in the same spot as he missed that one last time out on this field, which would have given Italy the win. If you remember that game, 13-all, he had the kick to give Italy the win, and he missed it. Well, this particular penalty was from pretty much exactly the same spot just before half-time. This time Garbisi got it over. No pressure on him for this one. 19 points to 8, the half-time score. And France were good for it as well. I thought that they were very good in that first half, once again showing their individual brilliance when the likes of Ramos and Dupont and Biel Biarri really get into the game. But we also saw really good work. Brauburi as well today was good in that first half. Gaetan was good running around the field, but we saw Miafu getting involved a lot for that huge man. He was getting around. Gigoux was doing some really good stuff in the breaking down play as well, and so was Thibault as well. So there was a lot of good players, I thought, in that French team in that first half today, which really, let's face it, set up the win today, didn't it? If you're scoring 19 points against Italy in the first half, there was not going to be many opportunities, one would think, for Italy to come back and score more than 20 points in the second half. However, we got stuck into the second half, and all I can say, as I wrote down here on my notes, it was a really clunky first 20 minutes of the second half. It was not very attractive rugby. In fact, it got a bit dour there for a while. There were a lot of mistakes on both sides, lineouts and scrums. There were scrum penalties to Italy. There were scrum penalties to France. But once again, one would have to be admiring the Italian scrum in this game. I thought they did very well again. At least they held their own at the very least, and they put the French under pressure at different times. But they also gave away a few more penalties today in the scrums that they hadn't done. Their lineouts weren't good today, Italy, nowhere near as good as they had been in their first two games, I thought. So that's going to be an area where Gonzalo Quesada has to put some focus on, I think. We saw a couple of balls that were just thrown to Neville nobody. We saw a couple of balls were uncontestable and they were crooked, and the referee gave away penalties for that and also scrums to the opposition. So Italy, some work to do in the lineouts, that's for sure, but their scrum continues to be strong in 2026. Then we got to the 46th minute and we saw a little bit of magic from Anton Dupont. He was caught behind a ruck. He decided to go for a bit of run. He just literally pushed off about 5 players. He came out the other side. He then put a kick through and gave his the likes of BRE and Adesogbe an opportunity to get on the offensive foot. And it was just another piece of Dupont magic at that particular time, beating 5 players, pushing them off like they were paper. And what is he? The smallest guy on the field. And he was just able to show once again his bit of brilliance. 53rd minute of the game, we saw the Italians bringing their bench on. That was something that I think didn't have a good impact against Ireland last weekend. And I thought the game went away for Italy in that last 20 minutes against Ireland. And I saw the same thing again here today. Those Italian bench players are just not making the same impact. And even though they were in the game at 19 points to 8 with 10 minutes to go, there was a bit of a scrappy second half from both teams, I thought, up until that stage. And then in the last 10 minutes of this game, it just absolutely fell apart for Italy. We had the situation where Louis Leiner had a deliberate knock-on situation. He got a yellow card. And at the same time, Capuozzo was down injured. And Gonzalo Quesada was yelling and screaming at the medics to get changes on the field. He could see what was going to happen here. Italy were down to 13 men. France had the penalty opportunity, and there was just not enough cover there for Italy. And Gonzalo Quesada could see what was going to unfold, but he couldn't stop it, unfortunately. And the try was on for France. The ball came out to Ramos. He got a kick across the field, and the Rien was in for his first try for France on the right-hand wing. And basically, there was no Italian players in sight. So France just really took care of that opportunity when Italy were down to 13 men. And the game in that last 10 minutes just blew up for Italy. What was looking quite a respectable scoreline at 19-8. And if they'd scored a try at that stage, they were right back into this game. But that Louis Leiner incident, combined with Capuozzo going off injured and Italy not having a replacement on the field, 13 men weren't able to stop this French team, and they got over for a try. The conversion from Thomas Ramos, and all of a sudden 19 points to 8 with only 10 minutes to go turned out to be 26 points to 8. And then the consolation try to Guillotin in the 77th minute just really put it to bed for France. So they got 2 tries in that last 10 minutes, France, to blow the score out a bit more. I think Italy would have been extremely disappointed with that because their defensive play had kept them in the game, even though their offensive play wasn't looking like they were going to score a lot of points against this French team in the second half. And that's where it got disappointing for me. So again, it's this backline from Italy. I talk about bricks all the time, but I think him and Menoncello are one of the best combinations in midfield in the Six Nations team when they're playing together, and they've really missed bricks in the first couple of games in this year's Six Nations. Italy, he's out for personal reasons. Hopefully he's going to be back for their last 2 games. That's going to make a big difference for Italy. And I still think they really do have a problem at number 10. I don't think that Garbisi is the guy to get this Italian backline away. There's not enough front footboard and creativity coming from that position. I feel I've been one of his critics for a long time, but I just think they need a world-class number 10 in this Italian team if they're going to really start to threaten. And today I was disappointed again, I must say, in Monty Ioane as well. Didn't have a brilliant game. He didn't go too well against Ireland as well. He dropped a lot of high balls in that game. He made some defensive errors. And again, he just wasn't doing it for me on the wing for Italy. And I'm usually a big fan of Monty Ioane. I'm just starting to go off him a little bit with his last couple of performances. And Odogwu came on in the last few minutes and took over him and had a couple of good runs. He showed a lot of enterprise and a bit of energy. So that's what Italy needs in the back. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. They've got to shore up that back three to make sure they're having some impact. Pani was good last week against Ireland, so I'd like to see him back at 15 when available. And I just think that Italy have still got some work to do around that. And at times, their forwards today, they weren't just doing it. The French were up for this, though. They showed some really good work at the breakdown. Zuliani didn't stick out for me today like he has in the previous games for Italy. He was getting caught a lot. And I think Fabien Galtier had put some strategic pressure on Zuliani today to make sure that he wasn't being dominant in the breakdowns. And we saw some really good work from the likes of Gigoux in particular. And then Olivon came on, and I thought he made a good impact in those last 10 minutes or so when he came on. He was able to also give the French some emphasis, and what a guy to have coming on the bench, off the bench is Charles Olivon. I think he's an absolutely great player. So France, this is what they've got at the moment. They've got all these young guys in their early 20s that are going to be around for a couple of Rugby World Cup cycles. They've got individual brilliance. They can play a 10-man game. They can play an open, expansive game as well. And when we saw it again today, the likes of Gaëleton, and we saw Biel Biarri scoring brilliant tries along with Thomas Ramos. This is working very, very well against Northern Hemisphere teams. But what happens to France when they go up against South Africa, when they go up against the All Blacks, when they go up against Argentina and even Australia? I think this year are going to bounce back once they get their players fit and healthy again. So this is going to be the real test for me this year to see how this French team goes against the Southern Hemisphere teams. Yes, we're seeing dominance from France against the Northern Hemisphere teams at the moment. We're seeing them play brilliant rugby, but the real test is going to come, and I think we're going to see that throughout the Nation Championships this year. And, of course, going into the Rugby World Cup next year. There's no doubt in my mind France are going to be a threat in the Rugby World Cup next year. But it's going to be coming down to those games like we saw in 2023, those games that have to be won by 1 or 2 points. Is this French team going to have the mettle to go deep in those games? Because when you're winning by these sorts of margins that we're seeing at the moment, they're not being tested to get over the finish line in a very tight last 10 minutes of a very intense test match. And I think they're going to need a few games like that for them to really, really see how good they are and how deep they are as far as their team goes. So that's my views on that. And we've finally got some people coming in the chat. Here we go. Rugby analyst number 1. Thanks for popping in. France were okay. Italy were really good, but they lack the attacking clinical edge. Yeah, they do. And they've got to be, if Italy want to compete against the big guys, they need to be scoring 20, 25 points plus in a game. That's my thoughts. And they're just not having it with this backline at the moment. The French pounce on opportunities. Yep, no question about it. They've got talent all across the field. And, you know, I usually talk about Dupont and Ramos and Biel Biarri, but we're seeing Gaëleton, Brau today was brilliant. Even Drian at the end. I think that that's a big thing for this French team. They're building this depth and youth now. Adesogbe keeps impressing me too. The more I see him play, both at fullback and on the wing, this guy's got some real talent. And I think Adesogbe is going to be one of those players that we're talking about at the Rugby World Cup in 2027. Outstanding player for France, Adesogbe, and still a young guy as well. Okay, Rugby Analyst 1, you're pumping it out. Let's go. Pani might be better to come back in, but it's not easy to leave out Capuozzo. No, true, but maybe we need to see Capuozzo on the wing and put Monty Ioane off for a while, because I just think in the last couple of games, Ioane hasn't shown. If we go back and watch the game against Scotland as well, in the dying minutes, Ioane was dropping balls. Yes, given that it was horrendous conditions in Rome for that particular game. But Ioane has done a few things in the last few weeks that I think that maybe it's an opportunity to change it around a little bit for that Italian backline, because you've got to ask yourself, where does 25 points come from? Who's going to score those points? And I always start off with Garbisi being the pivot there to be able to get it. If you look at what Ramos does, if you look what Crowley did yesterday, you can see that these guys that are managing that 10 position and getting their backlines away, putting guys through gaps. Ramos was doing it today on a number of different occasions, and we're not seeing that from Italy. That's my opinion. Flamand and Miafu were sensational. Both went the 80 and shows the level of second rows France. Yeah, no question about it. Miafu was surprisingly good today in terms of going the 80 minutes. And I think Gaultier was giving him a bit of a test today, leaving him out there all that time. And yeah, he more than passed the test. He was brilliant. He almost got a second try there as well at one stage. I think Adesogave is better on the wing. Yep. I would have liked to have seen Buros at 15, but he wasn't in the 42 this week. You might remember him as a debutant who played against the All Blacks. I do, definitely, yeah. I'm not too sure about Buros, though. I'm thinking that maybe from a fullback point of view for France, it's better to have Thomas Ramos back there when Jalabert comes back in. I just think he gives them good security. He's a very good defensive player as well, Ramos, and he can open up the wingers. So if you've got Adesogbe and you've got Biel Biarri on the wings, I think Ramos is the guy to have at 15. So I think once France have a week off like everybody else next week and they get some of these injuries resolved, hopefully, with 2 weeks in between now, we might see some of these guys come back into their right positions or positions that we've seen them in the past. So we'll have to wait and see. Anybody else out there got a comment? The rugby analyst number one is the man mandating the chat at the moment. I like to hear from everybody else. But a good win from France. If you haven't heard the final score, 33 points to 8 was the final score, with Gaetan scoring in the last few minutes of the game. After 12 phases from France, they went through a great attacking play again. Don't forget, Italy at that stage were down to 14 men after Louis Liner had gone off with a yellow card, a deliberate knock-on. And I think Italy were lucky to get away with that one as well, because the issue there was a prop coming across in defence, as Andrew Brace, the referee, said. But whether or not he was going to stop Louis Biel-Berry getting to the try line, I hardly think so. But let's see. Buros is great in the air too. I was just talking about, for this game, Jalabert 10, Ramos 15 is better. Ramos is prone to error at 10. You saw him get frustrated, but he can do magic things. Yeah. And that's why I gave Italy a slight chance today when Ramos was in at 10, because I thought if he makes enough stuff-ups, but of course he proved me wrong, went out there and, he's the kind of guy that does what he did in this game today, Ramos. I can't remember, when was it? He missed the kick for touch, and then 1 minute later he did a fantastic 50-22, and that's how quickly Ramos can turn things around. But there's not many teams in world rugby that would not have Thomas Ramos in their 15 fullback position, that's for sure. But we'll have to wait and see. So what for Italy now? Well, they're going to have to go away and regroup. I think the game against Scotland was very good. They were close against Ireland without getting that offensive penetration they need to draw that game. And today I just thought they showed a lack of ability in the second half from an offensive point of view. And that's going to cost them. So if they're going to have any chance against England and Rome, they're going to have to sort out that back line to get themselves some more opportunities at scoring, because the forwards are not getting it done either as far as scoring goes. And I think the Italians have got a great forward pack at the moment. I'm rating pretty much all their players. Nicotera and Ferrari are having great games in the front row. I see them doing a lot of things. And also when Russo and those guys come on in the second half, I don't see the same level as we're seeing from the likes of Zambonin, although I didn't think he had his best game today either. Zambonin, he had that brain fart of a restart. I don't know how this happens so many times to rugby players from the restart. They just stuff up a ball. So we'll see. Ray Zone 69. So, Mark, the expert of rugby, Italy won as you previewed. Mate, if you're just going to come here and throw shit at me, why don't you go somewhere else? Because I do this channel to have some fun and talk about rugby as a rugby fan. I'm just sick of you guys that come along, and I'm a rugby fan, mate. I'm not an expert. I'm here to talk about the game, have some fun, and I'm interested to do that with people who want to do that. So if you just want to troll people on YouTube, mate, go and do it on somebody else's channel, because you're not welcome here. It's as simple as that. Klaus, welcome to the chat. Jalabert absence was felt today. Ramos played okay, but the game flow was slow today from France. Yep, Jalabert in at 10. We've seen that. Absolutely. agree with that. I think Jalabert shows a lot more continuity, doesn't he, when he's in at number 10 for the French? So, yeah, brilliant. I agree with you on that one. Yeah, goodbye, Ray Zone 69. Enjoy your weekend, mate, and go and watch some rugby somewhere else. Anybody else got some nice things to say? Share some things about the rugby. We're here as rugby fans. Got comments to say about the rugby? Hey, Rayzone, why don't you go and start your own rugby YouTube channel, mate? And I'll be too happy to come over and make a comment about it. More than happy to do that. So what else do we see from Italy today? Rugby analyst, what do you think about teams dominating at scrum time but still losing, particularly England, who dominated scrum time against Ireland and Scotland but still got pumped? Yeah, it's an interesting thought, that one. I think in terms of there's domination at scrum time and there's domination at scrum time, right? So you can be dominant at scrum time and giving a platform for your backs to be very progressive in offensive plays, and that's what we see a lot of the time. And then we see domination in scrum times, but the backs not being able to counteract that. So if we actually look at Italy, I think they did some really good things against Ireland from a scrumming point of view, but they weren't able to capitalize it in the backs, right? So it wasn't converting their authority at those moments in the scrum wasn't converting to points. And also going down and scoring points while you're in the opposition's 22 is becoming more and more critical, isn't it? So I think that's something that we also need to look at. I think yesterday we saw that a number of times when Ireland were going down into England's 22, for instance. They're always they seem to be. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert. I'm a rugby fan. So when they went down into the 22, they appeared to be coming away with points all the time. So that's how I would answer that one. Scrum dominance doesn't always lead to points being scored or opportunities being created unless the back line is playing well. Klaus, 1292. If one team can stop France, it could be Scotland at Murrayfield. Yeah, they'll have to play like they did against England, though. I think if they put in a performance like they did yesterday against Wales for the first 75 minutes of that game, I think France might be a little bit too strong for them, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be a good game, no doubt about it. Klaus, 1292, I agree with you. Could be a good game there, especially if Scotland get off to a good start. It's going to be really critical against this French team. And then Rugby Analyst says that he thinks France could score 50 against Scotland because they want to play too. Yeah, it could go either way, couldn't it? And that's something that I'm excited about in rugby at the moment, is that you can have teams like Wales that turn up yesterday and play with their heart and their soul and have the result. Unlucky for them, they didn't get across the finish line. And to all the Welsh supporters out there, my heart's bleeding for you today. But Scotland hung in there yesterday and they grounded out a win in the last few minutes of that game. So they've shown us the week before the ability to play open rugby. Finn Russell was able to get on the front foot. He wasn't able to do it as much at all against Wales. So, yeah, it should be a good game, France-Scotland at Murrayfield. Absolutely. 50-25, something like that. Wow, so you're thinking, Rugby Analyst, that France are going to score more against Scotland than they did against Italy. That's interesting. Okay. We'll have to see the lineups, though. Yeah, after a couple of weeks of rest, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the team lineups, because there could be some changes. It's going to be interesting to see the Wales team now, because Steve Tandy's tried a couple of different things over the last few weeks. Rhys Carey has just stood out for me. He's really, really good. What percentage chance do you give Italy to get their first ever win against England? I give them 30%. Yeah, I'd be around there today after today's performance. The shine's just gone off Italy a bit with this performance today. And you would think that England are going to be very, very hungry to go down there and do well. I say that every week with England, that this England team's going to do well, but they've had a couple of bad losses. So going to Rome, it's going to be an interesting game. 30%, 30, Yeah, 30 to 40%. I would agree with that. Yeah. I think England have got to go into that one favourites, even despite their last 2 weekends. But teams are not seeing Rome as an easy place to play. That's all I'll say about that. It's a difficult place to go and win these days. I just hope Italy can kick on with it, because I want to see what we saw, in those first 2 games. And despite the loss against Ireland, I saw an Italian team that really took it to the end of the game there. So if they can get their attacking play sorted out, that'll be interesting. Cyril, hello from South Africa. What do you think of France game? Yeah, we're just chatting about it, Cyril. Overall, I think people are saying that France were impressive at times. The beginning of the second half wasn't very good from both teams. But all in all, France have got some dominant, brilliant players that are doing well against the Northern Hemisphere teams. And Cyril, I said earlier in the show today that I think that once France get to play South Africa, New Zealand, Australia and Argentina over the next 2 years, we're going to see how good this French team is or is not. That's when the test will really come, I think. Rugby analyst, I think Italy are better than Scotland defensively. That's why I said France will score more. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I would agree with that. Cyril, they are the best matches. Yes. Which matches are you referring to, Cyril? France game? Yeah. Scotland, France. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. I think he means South Africa, France game. Oh, okay. France versus South Africa in November this year in Nations Cup. This will be the closers. France will have a warm-up game against Fiji. Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, it's going to be the big test of this French team, isn't it? No question about it. Well, any team who comes up against South Africa this year, it's going to be a test for them to see where they're at against the double back-to-back world champions. So that's one of the games we're looking forward to. I think the other one's the England game, isn't it? South Africa, England, everyone's looking forward to that. I know as a Kiwi I am. Can't wait for that. Alistair Campbell, welcome to the chat. Nice to have you here. Very messy game. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Particularly that first 20 minutes of the second half. There was a bit of stuff going on with penalties and the flow of the game not really going in. And then we saw the changes and the reserves coming, and it didn't really kick on in the second half. This game did it like it was in the first half. So I think if Italy had scored a try early in that second half, we would have seen a different game. Would have, could have, should have, didn't. But I think the fact that it stayed 19-8 for a long time and no one was really getting an advantage, that went the way of the French, of course. And then we had the catastrophic last 10 minutes for Italy where Liner got sent off for yellow card. Capuozzo was injured. They were down to 13 men. France scored 2 tries. End of game. That was it. It's a pretty quick review, really, when you look at it like that. Cyril, South Africa versus South Africa should be okay. What do you think of Dalton Papali'i's move to Castries, and would he include him in the 23 for the All Blacks last year or 24 more? Obviously, the Razor agenda affected him. Look, I've got to say this, when it comes to Dalton Papali'i, I'm one of those guys that sits on the fence with him. I'm looking forward to the new chapter of the new All Black coach and selectors and coaching crew coming in, because I really think it opens up the case now for a lot more guys to be considered based on form in Super Rugby and what we're seeing at the moment. So is Dalton Papali'i still in that conversation in regards to that? Probably a good move to go to France for him personally. That's what I'd say. Maybe he's been told. What do you think of Dalton Papali'i, rugby analyst? Let me know your thoughts on it. Do you think he's doing the right thing? Or I think the Razor agenda affected a few people. I'd put Billy Proctor in there as another one that got affected by Razor's agenda. Absolutely. If you go back to when Billy Proctor came into the All Black team, he had that run against Fiji in San Diego, and then he was sat on the bench, never given an opportunity to develop and play. And we essentially wasted a year with Billy Proctor not being given the opportunity. So there was a number of players in that All Black environment. And I guess that's always going to happen, right? You're going to have some that are just not given the opportunity for whatever reason. Alistair Campbell, headless chicken rugby at times by France. That Italian try was a farce. Yeah, you could see it like that, but they took their opportunity. But France, yeah, they were throwing the ball around when they wanted to. And that's this French team, isn't it? That's what they do. They look like headless chickens at times. And as I said earlier, I think, they're not going to be able to play that way against the Southern Hemisphere teams and get away with it, right? So, and they may not be able to get away with it for the remainder of the Six Nations, so they need to be careful. But you've got to enjoy the brilliance while it's there as well, right? I think the cup's half full more than half empty for them. I like Dalton, big body, started the season well for the Blues, better than Karifi and Fina for sure. Proctor shouldn't have got games in 24, I agree. Second Bledisloe test or Italy at least. Yeah. Yeah, Karifi hasn't really kicked on as many people were touting him to do for the All Blacks. And Samapeni Finau, yeah, another one of those that a lot of hype around, but hasn't delivered consistently on the big stage. Cyril, what do you think of Fiji chances for the World Cup? Well, I'm one of those closet Fiji fans. I'm probably not even in the closet. I'm probably very open about it, Cyril, but I love Fiji rugby. I watch it every opportunity I get. I just wish they were able to go further in the big tournaments. I wish they were able to beat the top teams more consistently. And, they've got a good coach now. And, but yeah, I can't see them going past the quarters in the Rugby World Cup. What about you, Cyril? Do you see Fiji having a good chance in the Rugby World Cup next year? Love them too. What about a Fiji-Argentina final? That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? The Rugby World Cup next year. That'd lighten up the rugby world. Fiji Los Pumas final in Sydney, Australia. Wow. Get a few bucks on that if you had a bet. That's why I like Italy at the moment, because if they're able to consistently improve and become a strong team in the Six Nations, then it's a good thing for world rugby, right? And I'm a rugby fan before I'm an All Black fan and before I'm a supporter of other teams. I just want the game to grow and prosper. I want new teams to come along, and that's why I'm a big supporter of the Pumas and their continued upward trajectory. So if Italy can do the same thing, I'm all on board with that. Porto, welcome to the chat. Nice to have you here. Italy, a very good team. Yeah, they are. They are a good team. They just get let down in moments, don't they? And I think that's the difference between the top teams, isn't it? When you've got those critical moments, whether it be around discipline, taking opportunities, having those one or two players that can be game breakers. I think that's just where Italy, they've got the guys in defence, there's no question about it, but have they got the attacking power that's going to beat the top teams in world rugby, Italy, at the moment? I'm not too sure. They've got very good, steady players, and then they've got players in the back line that have brain fades at different times of the game that are absolutely crucial. Monty Ioane being one of those, I think. Rugby analyst, Fiji will be good. They have loads of players overseas. They just need more time together. Yeah, they've had loads of players overseas for years. Right back to when I was a kid, they had loads of players overseas. They need more time together. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on from what I hear in Fiji rugby that happens off the field of play that detracts from them in a lot of different ways, as with many rugby unions around the world. So sometimes we see the things that are happening off the field having a big impact on the field as well, and we shouldn't lose sight of that, because that's something that's dear to my heart with what we're doing with United Rugby fans. So, yeah, there's no doubt Fiji's got the talent, and I've always wondered what would happen if we had someone like Rassi coaching the Fiji team. How could they really could they become? Wouldn't that be awesome to see? Porter. Can you beat the box scrum with a lighter pack? Is it a case of beating them or is it a case of competing? So my opinion is that, and when you say lighter pack, are we talking 150 kilos lighter or 50 kilos lighter? That makes a big difference, of course. I think if you have a pack that is very good around the field as well as the set piece, I think they can compete with the Springboks pack. But if you're playing, and this is what I like about the Boks now, because now the Boks are playing a more open, expansive game. You've got to be able to beat them in both areas, not just up front. You've got to be able to cut down their offensive weapons. And if we all go back to that second half in Wellington last year, the All Blacks were not able to contain the South African backline in that last 40 minutes of that game. And it didn't matter what the forwards were doing because that platform was coming from expansive outside play from the Springboks. So you've got to be able to compete with the Springboks up front and in the back line as well to have any chance, I think. That's my view on it. Any more thoughts around France, Italy, or are we done with that? What about the weekend in general? Who were the standout players this weekend? For me, I'd have to put it to Jamison Gibson Park was brilliant. McCloskey was brilliant this weekend. They played very, very well indeed. I thought it was good to see Van der Fleer getting back into some form for Ireland. Disappointed in a number of English players that didn't seem to turn up in that game. I thought George Ford was pretty ordinary in that appearance for England in the weekend. And Scotland, a piece of genius from Finn Russell to get that kick away in that quick restart for Darcy Graham to score a great try for Scotland. That was a piece of individual brilliance. How would New Zealand do if they played in the Six Nations? That's a good question. Based on last year's form, Six Nations, well, we were beaten by England. Ireland played us in Chicago in the first game without Ireland having any games. So Ireland would run us close, I think, based on last year's form. Scotland ran us close this last year as well. And if it wasn't for a brain fade from Scotland in the last 15 or 20 minutes when they started kicking the ball away, and don't forget, it was only a little piece of individual brilliance from Damien McKenzie that got the All Blacks out of that game. And then they went to Twickenham the next weekend and lost to England. So they could have quite easily lost 2 games on the trot against Scotland and England. So, yeah, it's a really good question. It's a good question. Boks versus France today. Who wins? I think the Boks win out of Boks and France today. And the reason I say that is a lot of Boks supporters will say, well, one of the problems with our team is our aging players. Well, I think it's actually a strength to have that kind of experience in the team, and you can only play with the team. And I think Russie's doing a great job of transition. He's bringing in enough young players. I think what Fabien Gaultier has done is the same thing over the last 2 years. So if you look at the team today in France, a lot of their younger players, 20, 22, 23 years and younger, were out there playing today. They went to New Zealand last year to get some experience. So I think they're building one. But I think France is probably one Rugby World Cup cycle behind South Africa, in my opinion, because I think the South Africans who have got enough experience, like if you look at someone like Sasha now, who's been to New Zealand, played in New Zealand against the All Blacks and played well in New Zealand against the All Blacks. It's those kinds of performances and opportunities, I think, that give the Boks the advantage over France today. And I don't think the French's bench is as good as the Boks at the moment. You know, when you still got the likes of R.G. Schneemann and Quagga Smith that can come off the bench for the Boks, that's just, that's real talent. And I don't think the likes of Malvaca and those guys, they're very good players, don't get me wrong. And we saw Nettie and those guys coming on today. They just need to get more experience. They're going to be brilliant in the next 2 World Cups. So France are building there, but if you ask me who wins today, it's the Box wins today, in my opinion. Look, I've got to be honest, as a Kiwi supporter, as an All Black supporter all my life, I'd love to see someone else other than New Zealand or South Africa win the next Rugby World Cup. And if that's France or Argentina, I just think that'll be so good for rugby across the world. And, you know, I know all the diehard Box and All Black fans, but they're not going to. I just would love to see that for the sake of rugby across the world. Klaus, DuPont best 9 in the world and Ramos best 15 in the world? DuPont best 9 player in the world, if not the best rugby player in the world, for question. Yeah, and without a doubt, the guy is just a genius. He's got everything, right? He can kick, he can tackle, he can spark an attack. He knows his game management is extraordinary. He knows where everybody is in his team. He knows what the opposition are doing, a step ahead of the opposition. And, you know, I've been listening to a lot of rugby fans in the comments in my videos over the last 12 months talking about Cam Roigard and how brilliant Cam Roigard is. Yeah, he's a very good rugby player, Cam Roigard, and he's going to be a even better rugby player. But DuPont is so far ahead in terms of his ability and what he's able to create across the field, across a game. Whether the team's doing well or not, he's there, he's turning up, and he's providing that spark at different times. He's just absolutely brilliant. 15, Ramos 15, best in the world? Don't think so. It's a lot of good 15s around world rugby at the moment, isn't there? So if you're talking about Will Jordan at 15, if you're talking about Damien Willemser at 15, if you're talking about Fassi at 15 when he's fit and playing well, Tom Wright at 15 is brilliant for Australia. And I tell you what, this year and next year, Tom Wright's going to be one of the stars of rugby across the world. Watch out for him. He's got immense talent, that guy. So I think there's a few. I don't know whether Ramos gets that one hands down. Best in the world. That's my thought anyway. So what are we wanting to see in the semi-finals next year? Are we wanting to see Fiji, Argentina? That'd be good. Do we want to see Ireland finally get into the semi-final of Rugby World Cup? That'd be nice for all the Irish fans. I'd be a supporter of that. I just want it to be a cracker tournament, but I also want rugby to grow around the world and not all the focus on the Rugby World Cups. Let's talk more about grassroots rugby. How's your local team doing down in the, in your suburb? Tell me about how they're going this year. Who's your best players at the end of the street? I'm also interested in that stuff. Pigs might fly. Yep. Well, when you live in Mexico, mate, you see everything. So that's a possibility over here. Pigs might fly. Rugby's a funny game, though, isn't it? Eh? Anything can happen. Look at England. Unbeatable for 12 games and then capitulate into. So let's see. I'll give you another pigs might fly moment, Porto. It's the All Blacks, right? They beat the Box at Eden Park, and then the week later they capitulate in Wellington, their favourite ground, the Wellington Stadium. It's going to be good this year, though. We'll see what happens. Bring on the greatest rivalry tour. Yeah, Wales could beat Ireland. Yeah, well, let's see. That's what Six Nations tournament's so good, isn't it? We've had weekends like we have where it's just been really, really amazing. 77 minutes into that game yesterday against Scotland. Who knows? Who knew what was going to happen? But, yeah, all good stuff. Yeah, I want to ask you all a question in the chat. If you can just give me a minute on this one. Tell me one thing you'd like to be fixed across the game of rugby at the moment. Just one thing. I'd like to know your views and opinions on what would you change in the game of rugby today if you were the boss in charge. Let me know in the comments if you can. I'd like to know your feedback on that one. go for a few more minutes here before we close up today, talking about the France versus Italy game that's just finished an hour ago in Lille in France. Good game under the roof. Well, when I say good game, it was a good first 40 minutes and then it fell away a bit. Wasn't like we saw yesterday between Wales and Scotland or England and Ireland. And now all the players have got a week off from their international duties, and we'll get a break before we resume with the next round of the Six Nations. 2 rounds to go, of course. France looking likely winners at this stage, but who knows what will happen at Murrayfield when they go to take on Gregor Townsend's. I call them the Calcutta Cup specialists now, Scotland. but not right, I guess, because they beat Wales yesterday. Anyway. Okay, anything else to share on anything in the chat? Just in case you're not up to date with the Rayburn Shield, the Rayburn Shield was kept by Scotland this weekend. If you're not sure what the Rayburn Shield is, it's the linear competition in World Rugby, and it was set up by the guy who I interviewed on my show this week. So go over and have a look at that interview. David Algie was the guy from New Zealand who set up the Rayburn Shield, and Scotland did what they had never done before this weekend. They retained the Rayburn Shield for a second week. Paul Smith, welcome to the chat. What do these future All Blacks, Macca, Stringer, Harry, Godfrey, Josh Jacob? Yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I think I spoke quite a bit about Josh Jacob last year, playing for Taranaki, of course, my old province. And he's with the Chiefs this year, isn't he? Got a lot of time for Josh Jacob. I think he's a really good, solid number 10. I think he's going to be very, very good. Stringer and Godfrey also really good players, future All Blacks. I hope so. Yeah, hope they get the opportunity. Caleb Tangitau as well. Boy, that guy's got some pace. What a try he scored this weekend. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out on the highlights. It was a brilliant try. Caleb Tangitau just put his foot down and away he went. I'd like to see Caleb Tangitau and Kurtley Ardenser having a dash for a ball over 50 or 60 metres. That'd be interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the All Blacks situation. New coach coming in, new selectors. Will some of these other guys get a chance? Lucas Casey's another one we've got to keep our eye on in New Zealand if you're a Kiwi fan listening in today. Lucas Casey down there in Otago playing fantastic rugby. Brilliant number 7, I think, in my opinion. Future All Black, I hope. Really, really good player. Scores some great tries. Lucas Casey. Looking forward to Australia getting back to full strength this year. In particular, the likes of Tom Wright getting back in. Porto. Drop goal should be 4 points, really? Well, that's an interesting one. I've never, ever heard someone say that before. That's the first time I've ever heard that. Drop goal should be 4 points. Let me think about that. Well, you want to see more drop goals in the game. Maybe we go the other way. It should be worth 2 points. But, okay, who else thinks drop goal should be 4 points? You can send that over to Mark Robinson, who's having a state of the game meeting in London today. Paul Smith, another future All Black I forgot to mention is Lucas Casey. I just did, Paul. I added him onto your list, mate. I completely agree with you. He's a phenomenal rugby player, Lucas Casey. And I hope he gets to wear the black jersey with the silver fern for the All Blacks. Will he get a chance this year? Oh, that's a big one. Let's see. I think there's going to be some surprises in the All Blacks. I hope there is. Oh, that's okay, Paul. No worries, mate. I agree with you 100%. He's a brilliant player. Been watching him a lot, and I watched him a lot last year as well. And actually, last year, Paul, I even said Lucas Casey could be the All Blacks' answer for number 12. I think he's got that kind of ability in the midfield. He's brilliant off both feet. He's got really good hands. He gets over the advantage line. And I think it's time the All Blacks went back to that kind of player at 12 just to change things up. I know 99.9% of people disagree with me, but it's all right. I'm allowed an opinion. Lucas Casey at 12 for the All Blacks. There you go. That'll be a show, won't it? But I think everybody's happy with Quinn Tupaia now, and let's see how that goes. Anybody else think about this drop goal should be 4 points? Porto, tell us why you think drop goal should be 4 points. I'm interested to hear your logic behind that. Just got 5 minutes left here, folks, and then I have to leave you. I've got another thing going on today, Sunday afternoon here in Mexico. Sunday evening already in a lot of places around the world, or coming up to Sunday evening. Hope you've enjoyed your rugby this weekend. Six Nations is providing us with lots to talk about this year, and we've got a week off next week before we get back into it again. And then we start getting ready for the big stuff this year. It's all going to kick off quicker than we know it. I'm going to be here all year long with my channel. It's a skill that's harder to master, drop goal. Yeah, that's true. Yep. Although there's been some pretty good ones from some forwards in the past, Porto. Zinzan Brook, he was good at drop goals. Actually, where he used to kick them from, they should have been worth 4 points. He was about 50 metres out from the post. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether I buy into this. 4 points for... I agree with you that it's a skill that's harder to master for sure. But do we want everybody having a go at drop goals when we're trying to... Yeah, maybe we are. Yep. I don't want to say we want to be having open running rugby games, because then people start talking about how bad Super Rugby is to watch, which I don't agree with. But anyway. Wales, unfortunate yesterday, Wales against Scotland, that last 5 minutes. Had an exchange with Mr. Botham recently, James Botham's father. Very proud of his son, keeping up the Botham name across world sport. That's a family that's got some pretty good genes, isn't it? Thought he played well yesterday. Came on after about 10 minutes when Tane Plumtree went off injured for Wales yesterday, and we saw Botham come on at that stage of the game, early doors. Got a good run. Alex Mann played well yesterday, I thought. Rhys Carr was probably a standout for Wales. He was absolutely brilliant. Quite a few good players. Okay, folks. Well, we might leave it there for this particular stream. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the game between France and Italy. France ending up winners 33 points to 8 in the end, scoring those 2 late tries. And some good play from France throughout the game, and some pretty dour play as well at the same time. Wasn't the best game of the weekend, I didn't think. But anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me here on Inside Rugby with Mark. I'll be back soon with some more content, plenty to look forward to as we kick on for the rest of the Six Nations, and then we head into the other big games of this year, which I'll be following here all on my channel. So lots of previews and review videos coming up, and some more live streams from time to time as well. I wish you all the best for the rest of the weekend, wherever you are across the world. Keep enjoying your rugby. And it's time for me to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.